You're now tuned into the Shoot for Teams podcast with your favorite guys, Dorian and Kyle.
Welcome back to another edition of the Shoot for Teams podcast. It's your man D Hill, the gift card bandit.
Old man Ross, of course, sweat toots and 5 kicks.
Today we have our guy, the swollest dude we know, LA native Ryan Lauderdale. Ryan is an athletic trainer and much, much more these days. Ryan has achieved much success in the field by hard work and dedication. Ryan is a Nike master trainer who has workouts on the Nike Training Club app. Ryan has trained athletes in all sports at all levels and has helped them to see major improvements in their performance on the court, field, and ice. He currently trains out of his own space in El Segundo, California, called Ride Pen Fitness. If you're looking for a trainer who will create a tailor-made program for you to thrive beyond your goals and someone with a wealth of knowledge in the fitness space, Ryan is your guy. Welcome to the podcast, Ryan Lauderdale.
Man, I appreciate it. Yes, sir. I appreciate you having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, sir, man. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you, Ryan. So back in your college days, Ryan, you got injured, and then the injury brought you to a crossroads in your life. Why did you choose to become a trainer?
Man, for a couple of reasons. I felt like, even back then, I felt like it was somewhat of a natural progression for me to stay involved with sports and athletics. But then I had to ask myself one of those hard questions. I was like, well, I can continue to chase a dream, which a lot of my friends and teammates did. Some of them were successful, some of them weren't successful. I was like, I could continue to chase it, or I can get into the world and really get started with my professional career beyond being an athlete or aspirations of being an athlete. And so that's why I decided to make that choice to stay in the world of like training sports performance, because I realized that's what my passion was, and that's what the heart was. That's what like the fire was for me. So in order for me to be, successful and to do something for a long time, I knew I still needed to be around where that fire was. And so like that's why sports and sport performance and sports performance coaching was the natural progression for me.
Nice, man. So can you speak on your journey as a trainer, like thus far?
Yeah, man. It's it was all the things, man. Like, to be honest with you, it was all the things from like begging people to come to boot camps in like Long Beach, back in the day when I used to do stuff out there, to literally I used to be out on Saturday mornings in the streets of El Segundo trying to get people to come to this private gym that I was training at. I went from that to now I got my own nice, beautiful space. And along that journey, I worked at the time, Velocity was the largest sports performance chain and sports performance facility chain in the nation. And we had a lot of great athletes that we worked with. And, I worked there, and along that journey, I got put on with Nike and was doing a lot of stuff with Nike. And I've done everything from A to Z with them, including working with some of their top athletes and in a bunch of different projects. So from some of them in gym stuff, some of them were on set things, some of them, from A to Z with that, to going in and being in a different world and a different sport than I ever thought I would be in. You know what I mean? Like growing up in LA, we played baseball, basketball, football, and ran track. Maybe a few people did a couple other sports, maybe like tennis or something else that was kind of like off-brand or random for like that time in the world. But like hockey was not on anybody's radar if you were Black in LA.
Right. That's true.
And so now to be in the hockey world and, with my guys having a lot of success, helps to, certify me even more in that world, especially being, I would say being an outsider of the sports, not necessarily outsider of sports performance or strength and conditioning. It's been a really interesting and I would say unique journey. I wasn't planning on it,
right.
Honestly, I was not planning for it at all. Like the intentions for me was football. And, you know, honestly, I wanted to specialize in NFL combine training because that's what we did at Velocity back in the day. And we had a bunch of really top athletes, and things just changed. And so that's what you learn. At least that's what I learned in life from the journey of my life, is like, you got to be able to adapt. And the faster you're able to adapt, the better you're going to be as far as like being successful and being successful on the macro and the micro. You know, I think the pandemic helped to like reinforce that with a lot of people. It's like, man, you got to adapt because they're still charging us rent. We still got to eat food. I didn't get my check. I don't know. Maybe y'all got a check. I didn't get a check.
No.
So the bills still keep coming, but like you still got to find a way to you know, to pay the bills. You got to be adaptable. You know, so like that adaptability, I found is very important when it comes to business and sports, whether it be, you know, coaching, you know, whether an athlete gets injured or you're dealing with the athlete that has an injury prior to like combine training or any type of like special event, let's say playoffs or, you know, big tournament or whatever else it may be. And so you got to be adaptable so that you can change the plan and so you can still get success and be successful.
So
that's crazy.
The best surprises in life are those that you're not planning for, man. Like that makes your life. Like the ones you don't see coming end up changing your life.
For sure.
You're right. And speaking of change, you messed me up. I was going to ask you a question and you answered it, but I'm going to ask you a different one. Do you remember your first event you decided to put on, your very first boot camp, and how many people do you remember showed up to that boot camp? Did that motivate you, or you were discouraged, or, you know, what do you remember that first event?
Yeah.
Also, I'll give you, all right, so my actual first Right From Fitness boot camp, I think I had it was 2 people that showed up. It was my homegirl, Julia Pitts, shout out to Juju, and her mom. Miss Pitts and Juju showed up for me in Long Beach, and they drove all the way from Carson, and you know, came out, and they were there. I think those were the only 2 that I had in the first boot camp when I was doing stuff in Long Beach. But then when I came to El Segundo, like I told you, I was out there on Saturday mornings trying to talk to people, and it was like I was a ghost. People would not talk to me. They just keep walking by, doing whatever they were doing. And I knew, you know what I mean? It didn't stop me. I still had to, you know, show up and be out there to be a presence. And even though I got 0 people interested in coming to the boot camp, being out there, I did have a few people that were friends, and you know, they came through, they pulled up, and you know, got that working with me early on within like my career of like starting my business, and I'm being outside of the corporate fitness or corporate sports performance world.
That says a lot about your character, man. You know, because a lot of people would just give up. 2 people that's ridiculous. But you got to start somewhere, you know.
Yeah,
that's pretty impressive.
We definitely you know, are on that same kind of journey. You know, like, you know, you put in. People don't understand, like, when you're trying to start something on your own, like, they feel like, especially now in this popcorn society, like, oh, you start something, you automatically got to where you are there, but they don't see like you having a boot camp and only 2 people showing up, or we doing a podcast and only 5 people watch it, and we're like, yo, like, we put in all this hard work, like, why should we keep going? But it's like, a, you know, if you have a passion for it and you keep being consistent, you'll get to where you want to get to eventually. But it's, you know, you got to have that motivation, and it can be tough sometimes. So I definitely We definitely applaud you for keeping going, bro.
Well, I appreciate it. But I want to say this though, like honestly, I had to think about it. I was like, man, what was it that really kept me going? I think part of it was like I didn't know any other way, to be honest with you. I was like, I gotta make it. And I don't know what else to do, like other than like hustle and grind. And so like that's a part of like that sports mentality. Like I'm just gonna, I'm gonna go practice every day. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna do what I got to do to get better, to be better on the field, so I can get more time, so I get more looks. You know what I mean? So I can, when Saturday comes or Friday comes, that I get the opportunity to possibly play on Sundays, or you know what I mean. It was a different type of drive there, and then also I think it was Birucha kind of being naive, like just like, oh, okay, like I'm just gonna go out there and do it, and just keep doing it because. Like I said, I don't know any other way.
Right.
But being naive actually helps people. Like I've listened to so many podcasts about people's stories, and it's just their naivete of the situation. They just go for it. Like they don't know any other way, like you said, and they go for it. Whereas if you know certain things, it might hinder you from even trying because you're like, oh, I have this % chance of landing somebody. But if you're naive and you just go out there like, hey, this is me, I'm Ryan, can you come to my thing? And they're like, sure. And it just it snowballs from there. But I wanted to talk about like your mantra, like develop, evolve, and thrive. Like can you tell us about that?
Yeah, man. I believe in like words, the power of words, and even shapes, right? So those 3 words are like 3 different levels. So you can look at it in 3 different ways, like 3 different levels, or like a power shape, like a triangle. And like, we all have a start, right? And so our start is developing, and putting in the work in order to get to where we want, whether we're naive or or we're like headstrong and we have like a solid plan. It's about putting in that work and putting in the hours and putting in the time and mental energy and everything else. And the develop part, the evolve part is like that transitional phase, going from like that development stage to that transitional into the thriving. But that transitional, even from like a sports performance perspective, when you run, you have ground contact, you have mid-flight, late flight, and then that cycle comes through, and then you ground contact again. So like you can see it in different areas of life, whether it be sports, whether it be business, whether it be personal. There's that growing and that transition to the thriving, which is like where you want to be, right? That's, having guys in the Olympics and having guys get gold medals in World Juniors, or having guys get drafted in the first round, and having guys get big contracts and being sought after and being seen as a specialist, or being seen as a voice in industry that people respect and want more information from. I think that kind of like what you were talking about before about starting from somewhere. There's this guy, what is it? Huberman. He has his podcast. Oh man, I'm butchering. I'm butchering the name of the podcast. It was like Huberman Labs or something like that. Okay. And I think part of his story was, I think he was like a college dropout or something like that, maybe a high school dropout. And I think he was just kind of floundering. He didn't know what he wanted to do in life. And then he just got real interested on like the human body and what the body's capable of, the mind and the body. And now he has like, honestly, I think it's one of the biggest podcasts in the nation. And the other thing is like, he's really, really smart and seen as a top specialist in kind of like his field, which isn't just podcasting. Like he knows a lot about a lot of things. And, people go to him and like to get his views and takes and his opinions on things. But if he had stopped a long time ago because, he wasn't cutting it because he didn't take the conventional path of being a straight A student or, being accepted to Ivies or whatever else, then he would have been really selling himself short. And so I think, the human story of perseverance and getting to that thriving place in life You know, it's all a part of it. You know what I mean? I talk about it with clients a lot and friends a lot. Everybody has a story, but nobody cares until you make it, right? Nobody would have cared about LeBron being the kid from Akron if he didn't do those things to be the king. You know what I mean? To be, you know, on a lot of people's top 5. Not everybody, but a lot of people top 5. You know, and so, you know, but his story is significant now because of him not stopping, him not being deterred by by the haters, Skip Bayless and others. You know what I mean? That hate on Bron for whatever reason. And you know what I mean? I think we can take lessons from Bron and many others, right? It doesn't have to be LeBron. It could be, you know, it's you guys, you know what I mean? About doing what you're doing and creating a brand that looks dope. The hat is fly. I see you out there. And all the things, you know, being from LA, I think we as LA people, we go about things a certain way. And especially if you grew up in a certain era, like I said, like I wasn't thinking about hockey like back in the day until like Wayne Gretzky came to LA. And I was like, okay, cool. Wayne Gretzky's a big name, but I still don't really know about hockey like that. And so, you know, like my story might inspire a bunch of kids to just literally just think outside the box, similar to like a Venus and Serena did for tennis. And being successful on the biggest stage, you know, quite possibly, you know, my story might inspire some other kids, you know, that look like us that are from LA to just think outside the box.
Yeah, that's true. Before you go on, Kyle, fun fact, dude, I played roller hockey as a kid.
Word?
And, and the crazy thing is, like you were saying, like you being an inspiration, it's about representation too. Like I only got interested because at the time they had like this roller hockey league, and there was a black guy on the LA team who used to play at the Forum, and I was like, "Yo, like if he could play, like I'm gonna try." And then at the time, my mom was telling me I needed to play another sport other than basketball, so I was like, "All right, I'm gonna play roller hockey." I don't know why I didn't play ice hockey, but roller hockey just seemed more fun to me because, you know, I could just go outside and play and do all that stuff. And before you know it, like when I first started, all my friends was like, you know, like, you playing hockey? Like, what is going on? So like over time, like they started playing, and then I got into a league, and I was playing in the league in Torrance, and I should have kept going, but I just didn't see that many people in hockey that look like me in the NHL. So I was just like, I'm gonna just stick with what I know. But I should have kept going. But you know, there's guys like PK Subban now and a bunch of other guys in the NHL that are representing for us too. And when I found out you were doing that, I was like, yo, that's crazy. Like, right, straight training hockey players now.
Yeah, man. Crazy. I think one of the biggest things too that I've seen is just not having a limited mindset. Sometimes we limit ourselves, like, oh man, black people don't swim or black people don't surf. Like, nah, man, we do everything. But just throughout the years, things have told us that we don't do things. But I wouldn't say that is of us. Like we throughout the history of the world, we've been everywhere and we've done all the things. And so why are we being limited now? And who's limiting us? And if it's us limiting us, that's a problem. But it starts with the individual not being limited by oneself and mastering, you know, our mind to be able to go forward and achieve greatness. And greatness means different things. You know, it's not always being a LeBron. You know what I mean? Like greatness is, you know, being an amazing elementary school teacher, you know, that inspires, you know, inspires young kids to go up and be LeBrons or be everything else in between. You know, greatness is everything from, you know, becoming president of the United States to honestly being that person that you see every day, you know, maybe the mailman that has really good energy and always remembers your name, not just because your name is on the letters in the mail or whatnot, but just gives you good energy every time you see him. You know, greatness isn't limited. It's just, you know, it comes in different forms every day.
It's true. I'll give you a fun fact later, Ryan. Before we move on, I think exposure is a key part in the Black community. So if kids are not exposed to hockey, swimming, and other sports, they're just exposed to basketball, football, track, as you mentioned, baseball, and they have a closed mindset. Also, the parents do. Even I did when I was younger, and even when I got older, not willing to try things. And then once I got out of my stage of not trying to try stuff and meeting all walks of life from work and from other places, you're like, wow, you do that? I never even heard of that. Or you do this? I never even seen that. And you look up and you're like, well, I could try it too. It didn't kill the person. I might as well try it. So that's another thing. I think exposure is a big thing, Ryan, in the Black community, Black and brown. I don't think our young kids are exposed to a lot. So that's dope that you are doing what you're doing to show them, hey, you can play hockey, you could play tennis, you could swim, you could do anything. And we're trying to do that with our brand, exposing people that, hey, you're not going to make it to the NBA. Well, you have a chance, but if you don't, you can be a Ryan who trains athletes. You can be a photographer professionally. You can be a coach, a referee. So many other things you can do in the basketball world. So that's what we're trying to do with our brand. Just wanted to, say that.
Hey, you're exactly right.
I noticed that you played football and then you ended up getting hurt. If you could do it all over again, would you change the sport football and do something else?
No, I love football that much. And the pain, man, and the hurt and everything I went through, I felt like it helped to make me who I am today, good, bad, and indifferent. So, I had a lot of time to think about this question throughout the years of being injured and whatnot. But man, I don't take any of it back. I just, if it had been a different time in life, a different era, because I feel like now the amount of science and sports science is out there. If I was, had that available to me back in the day, I think that would have helped me out and helped my recovery so that I could, continue playing on an elite level and show myself worthy is the way I used to think about it. You know what I mean? You want to compete with the best and show that you are the best. You know what I mean? And if things have been different from me back in the day by way of sports science, I think that could have prolonged my career. But I definitely don't take it back.
Okay, all right, I respect that.
Yeah. So how difficult was it for you to, like, once you made that, once you got injured and you made that decision, like, I still want to be in sports, but I want to, switch my gears to becoming a trainer. Like, how difficult was it for you to change your mindset from being an athlete to training athletes?
Oh man, that's a really good question, man. I'll be real with you. It was really hard in the beginning. It was really tough because they were basically my peers. We're the same age, you know what I mean? I look like them, they look like me. And I was like, why am I on this side and I'm not over there? And like for me personally, like I had to step away from football and being a sports performance coach specifically for football. I had to do it because of that for a little bit, at least I had to do it because of that, because instead of making sure that the athlete was a priority, I was making it about me and, why I wasn't there or why I was where I was and why they were where they were. When I looked at all my numbers, I'm like, man, look at the numbers. I'm looking at testing, I'm looking at speed, I'm looking at strength. I was like, man, I'm killing these dudes. But why am I here? And so I think for me, in order to not, have a bad name or create a bad name for myself in the industry, or so that I can make sure that the athletes weren't being underserved, I removed myself and I had to go and to deal with it, you know what I mean? Say like, hey, you're not there. They are, and over time, it took years for me to say like, yo, it doesn't make you less. It doesn't make them greater. For a long time, man, I thought like, man, football hates me. Like, why did football do me like this? And over time, I realized, man, football doesn't love anybody. It loves nobody. There's just a few lucky people They don't get injured, or you know what I mean. Like a Tom Brady is such an anomaly, he's such an outlier. But that's not the norm, man. Like you can look at Dez Bryant. Look at how they did Dez. Like it doesn't matter who you are. Football doesn't love anybody, man. And once I really came to like understand that, and was like, oh, I didn't take it as personal, and so I was able to like move forward and you know, I mean, better serve the athletes that I work with, and that's where I realized too when I came to the realization that it is a service industry. I am serving people. I'm providing a service and helping them to be better within what they're doing. But when you are in the service industry, I think you have a different mindset, a different way of going about things. At least to, you know, if you want to be like really good and very successful, you have to have a servant mindset of, hey, how can I help you be better? So it becomes less about you and becomes more about those that you're working with and helping them to be great. And that doesn't take away from your greatness.
That's a great point, bro. Great point.
Ryan, we see so many athletes that get hurt and then they want to get back to that level they were at before they got hurt at a high level. And talking about steroids, did you ever think in your mind, maybe I should take steroids just to become back to where I was and to be in great shape? And can you just talk about what it does to the body, pros and cons?
Yeah, so for me, no, I never thought like that. I never really had that, I won't even say really, I never at all had that mindset of wanting to take steroids. We grew up in the era of steroid use in wrestling, pro wrestling. We grew up in the world of steroid use in Major League Baseball and in the NFL. But, you know, people weren't necessarily talking about it the same in the NFL as it was talked about in Major League Baseball and wrestling. Oh, and also bodybuilding, right? And so it was, you know, it was all over the place. But like for me, I never even thought about that. For, you know, all the reasons, just because like, you know, being, especially once I started to develop like my strength and muscle, you know, around like my senior year of high school, people already assumed that, you know what I mean, that I was juicing. So I was like, man, it's just hard work. Like I'm just out working you. And so like for me, like I didn't want to be invalidated. I didn't want to invalidate all my hard work by being even accused of taking steroids. So now the long-term use of steroids, I think it depends on like who you talk to. But like if it's not like monitored, if it's not monitored well by a medical professional, the effects on the heart could be great and the effects on the body can be great long-term. Like now, if it's monitored, like, I mean, you can, I've read and heard things that you could be successful and have a long duration of steroid use. I still wouldn't recommend it for a bunch of reasons, you know, of, you know, possibly tarnishing your name, possibly tarnishing opportunities within like the sports world. But it depends on what sport, right? If you're talking about bodybuilding, professional bodybuilding at the highest level, you're not going to find anyone who hasn't or who's not is just a part of that world. And in order to maximize muscle and maximize their physique. But now when it comes to other sports, I think it creates an unfair playing advantage, right? If one person, or let's say 2% of the people in the league are using steroids, but the rest of the percentage of the league are not, and those 2% out of 2%, they are, you know, doing things that's superhuman. I think it's an unfair playing advantage. And so
absolutely.
I want everything to be fair. Now, was that steroid era of baseball, was it exciting for home runs?
For sure.
I don't see anybody that could argue against that. Like, it was a very exciting time because you knew every day Barry Bonds was knocking one, like into the water. You know, Sammy Sosa, you know, and everybody else was doing crazy, amazing things. But now do what I want to see that, you know, to the detriment of someone's health long term. Nah, like, you know what I mean? I want to see legends live forever, you know? Yeah. And so I think from a being fair and a playing advantage for most major sports in America, in the world, like I'm against it because of that.
Cool. That's what you heard them, kids. Stay away from the steroids.
It's not. I was gonna say it's not as talked about as it used to be in sports nowadays, because I think everybody kind of shares with your same mindset. But I mean, I know it's still there and active in every sport.
Oh, it's there. Yeah, it's there. You know, and I think things don't become banned until like the science that's done on it that says it should be a banned substance. And so that's, you know, if you're ahead of, you know, the game on that, then, you know, you could be in front of a judge and say like, oh no, I was not taking that because, you know, I was not taking steroids because it wasn't like defined as a banned substance at the time. So like, there's a whole bunch of ways around it, but you know, I think the other thing that's a bigger issue right now, more than like steroids, is like other substances and abuses of other substances, such as like opiates and things of that nature. I think that you know what I mean, the long-term and short-term ramifications of that is huge, and I think it's talked about more now, which is a good thing. But you know, I think that as minds start to open more with, you know, things that were considered recreational drugs or things that were considered banned substances like, you know, THC, CBD, microdosing with other things. I think that things in people's minds will start to be changed. People start to reevaluate their stance on things. But definitely, you know, the pill popping and how the ease of accessibility and how really the ease of becoming an addict to those things, I think has been very concerning for a lot of people in all major American leagues, sports leagues. And I think as we continue to go and they start studying and continue further studies on like on the brain and CTE, I think those studies should continue to and be as extensive for the long-term ramifications of both opiates on the and pill popping use on the body and the mind.
Yeah. Okay.
So like what is like your main objective and focus like when you're training people from different sports? Because we know you train football, you're training hockey players. Just say like, you know, you get somebody from any of those, like what's your main focus?
It really depends. So part of it is like understanding the demands of the sport and then understanding like positionally the demands of each position. I was actually just talking to a really good friend, mentor, like a brother to me, and he's one of the more well-respected people in the hockey community. And I was, you know, I'm still growing in you know, immersing myself in the hockey world, in my hockey knowledge. I don't know it the same as I do football and basketball and baseball and whatnot, but it's growing. And so basically I asked him, I was like, well, I'm trying to get even more of a handle on the sport and or specificity to position and training, because that's what you do in football, right? You're not going to train an offensive lineman in the same way that you train, you know, a running back. You're not going to train a running back the same way you train a quarterback. It's all slightly different depending on like positional demands. And so he was saying, in the way hockey is, it's not like that in the same way, right? Because you know, in a shift, you know, you could have a tough shift where everybody's skating really hard. You know what I mean? If you look at playoff hockey, which, by the way, I think is one of the top 3 playoffs in all major American sports to watch. I think for me, it goes basketball, football, and then playoff hockey, and then baseball can come somewhere after that. But like, man, playoff hockey is tough and it's very demanding on the body. And but you know, I would say you look at the demands of the sport. Hockey, obviously, there's a lot of lower body emphasis. There's a lot of core emphasis. A lot of emphasis on the hips and hip strengthening. There's a lot of emphasis on like rotational ability. So you got to be able to like rotate through thoracic spine, but then also you got to have strength. And what everybody's doing right now, as opposed to, let's say, 25 years ago, is more of an emphasis on like recovery and regeneration. So really getting athletes more familiar with those tools, like say, like, you know, like recovery boots, red light therapy, you know, more sports specific massaging and stretching, and nutrition, and understanding how all these things help to benefit the athlete, and honestly, in the paycheck that they're taking home, right? Because if I can be available, right, best ability is availability. If I'm available and I'm performing at a high clip every single night that I have to go out there, and I'm a leader inside the locker room and on the ice or the field, that's going to help me my longevity in the sport, and honestly, contract negotiation was when it comes to time.
Yeah. Hockey it has a lot of demands on your body, man.
Man, yeah, it's very
I used to be dog tired after practice, bro.
Oh man, yeah, man. It's really fast. I would say hockey, man, is very fast nowadays. I mean, these guys, they're so skilled now. They're so fast. I would say it's a slightly different body type than, well, I would say it's really different than let's say 30 years ago. Now I think you'll see a lot of guys who aren't like this like huge big body frame guys. You see a lot more guys now that are smaller that might have previously been considered just skill guys, but some of these guys are like, I mean, they're playing, you know, defensemen, they're playing like center, they're playing everything. And it's a lot of skill. It's not that they're not strong, but man, it's a lot of skills, a lot of really good stick handling, and they're just so smart. And their hockey IQ is like, it's another level. Like when you hear press conferences, like with LeBron talking about a game 10 years ago, and he knows exactly where everyone was, like it's like, you know, next level type stuff, right? And I would say that there's a lot of hockey players that are their hockey IQ is I mean, it's on another level. I'm not gonna say the LeBron level. Not everybody can be LeBron, but there are a lot of people that are, man, super smart, super intelligent with the sport, knowing with everything that's happening, where everybody needs to be. And there are definitely people on that LeBron level, you know, IQ when it comes to their sport.
I want to say one thing about hockey, okay? The equipment that the hockey players wear smell awful, okay?
Bro.
It is the worst smell,
bro.
Worse.
I've never, because I used to work at the skating rink, Ryan. So a fun fact: my dad was part owner at the skating rink in Culver City before he died. Yeah, so that opened my eye to what you and Dorian were talking about in that world of black and brown. But a black man being part owner at a skating rink where nobody would even imagine that somebody would be owning a skating rink as a black man. But I thought that was fun. But anyway, players would come and practice, and we would have to open the doors everywhere after they left because it smelled like, I mean, it was like dead animals.
Yeah.
It's the worst smell ever.
I got in trouble one day because I had my hockey gear in the car, and I didn't zip the bag up.
Oh my goodness!
My mom was like, "If you don't zip this bag up, when we get in the car, he was like, "You are not playing hockey no more because it's all of the like your gloves and your pads. It just soaks up all the sweat, and it's hard to maintain it."
One of my guys this past summer, he's a goalie. He plays at Cornell currently, and in the summertime, summer training, and I think he had just come from the ice, and he had his gear in the back of his truck, like flatbed truck, right outside. Summertime, breeze going through. The truck is parked away from the front door. And I'm like, nah, bro. I was like, you got to move that. I was like, nah. I can smell that from over here. I can't take that, bro. It smelled like a mixture of the streets of Venice, downtown LA, and old stale mustard. Like,
hey, you're right, bro. No, for real.
A mixture of mustard and pickle juice and just
it's a different type. As the older folks would say, different type of rank that you deal with. Like it's terrible.
Even if you leave them outside, and you do the baby powder, you do all kind of stuff, it'll go away for like a day maybe. But as soon as you play again, it comes right back.
They said in the NHL they bake, or they have a room that they put all the equipment in and they heat it up at a crazy temperature, and that's what gets the smell out. This is what I was told.
It must be to kill the bacteria, something like that.
It has to be, because you wouldn't be able to play in arenas. You have to play in like stadiums outside.
That outdoor series every game.
Man, ridiculous. But you talked about a common foundation as far as dealing with athletes in different sports, but I wanted you to just touch a little bit more on the recovery, how important that is dealing with athletes, Ryan, and if you could just give us a few different recovery methods that people could use dealing with hockey or any sport.
Yeah, recovery is extremely important. There's a bunch of things that you can do, a bunch of tools and methodologies that you can use within like your recovery process and your regeneration process. One is honestly just adequate sleep. If you're getting enough sleep and you're getting good quality sleep, man, it's gonna help you feel so much better. It's going to get you out of that fight or flight, that sympathetic nervous system response, and get you into like a parasympathetic state to where your body your mind can relax and your body can actually like recover well. Hydration and hydrating with water. And other good things that are, as an athlete, that are built for athletes and athlete recovery. There's a bunch of like recovery drinks out there. I'm not gonna plug any one brand.
No, I got you.
Yeah, but and there's other like topical creams that you can use. I will plug this brand because they're good and I use them. They're called AMP, Human Performance. It has sodium bicarbonate in it, which helps the recovery process, and it helps athletes, especially like hockey players and endurance athletes, go for longer, so you can maintain high levels of play for longer periods. And then other things like proper nutrition, like eating well, eating enough, and like pro athletes, I would say generally with the teams have coaching staff to where most of these things are taken care of, or they have access to the best, right? I would say that throughout the years, a bunch of young athletes have come through and not necessarily have placed the same amount of intention behind mastering nutrition throughout the years. But I would say athletes now, man, they're locked in. They're locked in. I've seen it at a very young age because they have access to so much. But I just see, man, so many young athletes just doing more and being proactive. And that's why I believe we see more highlights of, basketball players doing crazy dunks. You know what I mean? All different backgrounds. It was not white man can't jump. Like, nah, these dudes are doing some amazing stuff now. Just because like they're not just sitting on the sideline idly and complaining about like what it is they don't have. Like, nah, they're being proactive and getting out there And so, when it comes to recovery, if you're talking about like, infrared saunas, if you're talking about like ice baths, if you're talking about recovery boots, whichever kind of recovery boots you have, whether you're talking about like red light therapy that, helps to increase blood flow, that's generally what I like to say that what we're looking for, and what most of these methodologies do is increase blood flow within the body that helps to like shuttle like nutrients and blood. When inside the blood, there's the nutrients that help the recovery and help that body, repair itself, but then also helps that not with oxygenation, which helps the overall recovery of that particular athlete. And so when we think about performance, so performing on the ice or performing on the court, the hardwood or the field, the football field, it is like doing the right stuff in practice, with your on ice coach, or doing the stuff in the weight room, or and also it matters. Performance matters for what you're doing outside of the court, or outside of game day, or outside of practice. It's eating right, it's hydrating well, is using some you won't necessarily use all, but some of these methodologies in order to make sure your body is like back and rested, so even if it's doing like prehab exercises that are specific to the individual, like different, I don't want to say like stretching, because then when you get into it, sometimes like people don't necessarily need a stretch, it's strength for some places. So that's why I just say overall like prehabs kind of all encompassing, but like doing the right things to help to recover, and so that you are ready and available so that you can, be at your best.
We talked about, you training in different sports as far as football and hockey and stuff. But because we are a basketball centered podcast, I wanted to just kind of ask you, like, as a basketball player, like, what would you suggest that the players focus on as far as like training and their fitness goals, like if they're trying to become a professional athlete?
Yeah, that's a great question. With everything, you want to make sure that, especially for a sport like basketball, you got to have adequate conditioning, right? So if you are not in shape, you will see that your game changes, right? Especially like, all right, so now like, all right, we're all a little bit older. We don't hoop as much or on the same level. And, when you haven't been out there in a minute, you're like, ooh, like, yeah, like your game changes, right? You just don't move as well. This is like your overall game changes. So I would just say, first and foremost, I would say make sure that your conditioning is up to par. And then when it comes to like training, it still starts from like a strength perspective. Now, I'm not saying you need to be the strongest man in the entire world, but I was looking at something recently, and they were talking about like the evolution of Steph. And Steph now does a lot more strength training. He does like things like trap bar deadlifts and everything else, and he focuses on that because strength is essential to longevity, and then also it's essential to athleticism. And then the other thing I would look at would be from the ground up: foot, ankle, lower leg, so like calf, hamstrings, hips, the entire, like I would think about everything that with it encompasses like the hips, so like glutes, adductors, quad, hip flexors, and then good core strength. And so I would look at all those things, because even if you're talking about like your shot, a lot of people might think upper body, but where's the force created? It's still from the ground up. And so It's called a jump shot for a reason. Yep. And you know what I mean? Like, even if you're a set shooter, you want to have a good base from the ground up, because everybody, when you're shooting, your heels off the ground. So if you don't have a good, strong, stable foot or good, strong calves, it can affect your shot and it can affect your rhythm. And so whether we're talking about like basketball, or we're talking about hockey, or talking about football, rhythm and timing is an essential part of athleticism. So I would start with those, those things, as far as like creating a plan or approaching how to be a better basketball player and just overall athlete. But, speaking about basketball specifically, I would definitely look at those things. And then the other thing is like breaking, right? Because you go fast and then you stop. There's a lot of stopping in basketball. And so you got to have good breaks. And so you got to look at how your body absorbs like all that force that you're creating. And you got to be able to have good force absorption within the body so that you can, like I said, have longevity. And so honestly, it's going to help to set you apart. And so the other thing is so you don't get those ankles snatched, right? Because if you have good breaking, it's not going to be good for you.
Yeah,
that's what happened to Steph in his early careers. He had bad toddler ankles. Now look at him. Yeah, that's crazy. We see a lot of injuries, especially ACL tears. Would you say that is attributed from overtraining or improper training?
It could be both. It could be a combination of a few different things. I couldn't say one thing for sure. A lot of people, when they talk about like ACL injuries or preventing of ACL injuries, they would talk about like, hamstring strength and making sure you have adequate hamstring strength. I think it's more than that. I think there's a bunch of things you got to look at. And so we look at, let's say, Odell Beckham, and we look at how he looked in the beginning of the Super Bowl and warm-ups. I mean, he was catching touchdowns. He was like really stretching the defense and taking it up top. And then he got put down from a non-contact injury with his foot literally just touching the ground, and his knee gave out. And so there's a bunch of things that you will look at. You still look from the ground up. You still look toe, foot, ankle, lower leg, hamstrings, adductors, hips. And then, so, when you have a full medical staff and medical team, you can do, up to a 60-point plus assessment to find areas of weakness within the body. And so, I think I see it as a very complex question, and it's hard for me to give a direct answer, but I still think about strength. When something isn't strong, it gives out. Right. When something is over lengthened, it tears. But if something is over lengthened, generally something that supports it on the other side or somewhere else in the body might be over tight. So when something in the body is doing something else's job, it can create those imbalances and possible injury.
Before Dorian goes on, Ryan, Dorian and I always speak on the quality of shoe now, going back to basketball. Yeah. And we're not going to name any particular brand, but they rush the product and the product doesn't seem as good as it used to be. And you see a lot of injuries. Do you think, in your opinion, that might have something to do with it as well? Or you just still think strength, the equipment really doesn't have much to do with it?
No, I think the equipment does have something to do with it. When you're talking about footwear, there's a lot more cushion in the footwear now. And, that could be part of, the overall problem. It could be part of the solution. It really depends, because all of the cushions are slightly different, right? So it can create a different response in the foot. But ultimately, it goes back to like the foot and the foot being strong, right? If I have a weak foot or a weak ankle or like over tightness in certain things like big toe or whatnot, then it'll affect the way my body functions. It's going to affect the way that I'm able to create and absorb force. And if I have, say, something that's super cushiony, something that's, not wide enough, something that doesn't like let have a wider toe box to where I can have, good movement within my foot. If it makes my foot too narrow, then I think that's a problem as well. And not being able to like let my foot splay and do what it needs to do, as far as like gripping the ground and just like basic kind of like caveman like characteristics of like just proper human movement. And so I would say it still goes back to like those core things, core foundational things of having good, strong feet, and you know, strong ankles. But remember that, you know, it's a mobile joint, so you want to have good ankle mobility there, and strong lower legs. So calves are definitely something that are important, should be trained when it comes to like basketball, hamstrings or something that is important, you know, and looking at like tightnesses within the body based off of, you know, sport and or things that could be overworked or overused, and making sure that your body is getting an adequate amount of like recovery by way of like possibly like massage or other things. And so I wouldn't say that the footwear is, you know what I mean, the super villain. It's not the super villain per se, because if you look at like athleticism, if we never had footwear, I don't know if we would see athletes doing a lot of what we're able to see athletes do.
True.
And so that's why I can't say that it's like the villain, but certain things when it comes to like footwear, it doesn't necessarily help it out either.
I got you.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I know you talked about, you know, like the keys to, you know, being a good athlete, and you mentioned nutrition. As far as like basketball, is there anything that basketball players should be concentrating on putting into their body as opposed to any other sports?
That's a good question. I would say I would say it's kind of individual, right? So like, all right, let's say like a Zion, you know, right now, Zion almost, I mean, I'm definitely not clowning, but man, he almost look like Big Perk right now. Like,
he eating a lot of beignets down there.
And so, definitely not clowning. I'm a Zion fan. I mean, I really enjoy watching that young dude get on the court and do his thing. He's a special talent. But for somebody like him, you know, there's more than likely that you're going to be watching like calories, right? You're probably going to be more of a caloric, like restricted diet. You know, now how you go about that, depending, you know, meaning like macronutrients, it might depend here and there. You know, you could, you know, there's a bunch of different like percentages that, you know, their training or nutritional or dietitian staff might go about it. And so like, there's a lot of like gray area, but for somebody like him, it'd be like more like caloric restrictive to get him down to a certain playing weight to help his body out. You know, when we think about longevity or just overall athleticism, it's not going to be in his best interest. I think I was looking at something recently. Charles Barkley was talking about like one of his OGs said that like, yo, like if you want to be significant in the league, you got to lose weight. And that's just the way the NBA was, and it's still the way the NBA is. You're not going to be an offensive lineman in the NBA thinking that you're going to be, you know what I mean, a 10-time or what is LeBron now? 18-time? I mean, 20. 18, I don't know.
18.
Man. Yeah. So you're not going to do that if you are a certain weight.
Can you give us 5 things an athlete should be doing to get the best out of their bodies? You mentioned them throughout the whole podcast, but just 5.
But just real quick, you don't got to expound upon them or anything.
Okay. Strength training, eating well, mindset, meditation, breathing correctly, and using the adequate amount of recovery modalities, whether it be prehab, mobility training, or other things that deal with soft tissue and or recovery to increase blood flow in the body.
Okay,
nice.
It's a good 5.
It's a great 5.
And I said this one last thing is sometimes it's just like, man, taking rest days too, like just to like take time for you. You know what I mean? I think off season and guys being able to be with their families and just like chilling out, man, that's huge. That's huge in like the recovery process and you know, where they can just be with their loved ones and they're not dealing with like all the craziness of what it is to be a professional or a professional athlete. They can just unwind, and I think that's huge too. So having a good family base is extremely important. Having a good family unit and a good team around you.
Yeah. I think too, like a lot of the older, like back in the day when we were younger, I think a lot of the athletes then when it was off season, they was off. Like now it's like when it's off season, they still training every day and still getting in the gym every day. And I think people are just trying to reach that pinnacle of their bodies, I guess, and they don't really take time to just chill, like, and get away from the sport.
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. I think part of that, what you said and what we see now, I think contracts are bigger. And so guys are doing more to get more money, right? So it depends on where you're at in your contract. I think that, and I think there's a couple other things too, like legacies, right? You know what I mean? Like if you hadn't gotten the ring, like, all right, once again, I'm not hating on this dude, got a lot of respect. You know, you made it to the league, do your thing. AD, right? AD was a different AD before he got the ring in the way
yes,
that
he was. Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
The hunger was there. Right. He wanted to get that ring. Once he got the ring, it changed a little bit. He backed off, took his foot off the pedal a little bit, and you know what I mean. And you know, you can say whatever it is you want to say about AD or the Lakers right now. I'm just saying that things were different before he got the ring. I think that brings a little bit, you know, a different type of motivation for guys to want to train longer and harder and more intense in the off season or start their off season sooner. Is that helping or hurting? Man, I think it kind of depends. I think if they're doing enough of the right things, and it's periodized and to where they're peaking at the right times, I think it's a good thing. But you know, there's a lot of things that people can do, like as far as visualization, working with mental coaches and whatnot, to where they're still getting a lot of work. Because I think a lot of it is mental. I think you see a lot of these teams now that aren't doing well, man, the mentality is not really there. You know, so they've either taken themselves out of, you know, of playoff contention, or they're just kind of unmotivated. So like the mental part of the game, I think is huge. And it's going to be a huge advantage for anybody who's able to master that part of their game.
Nice. So what kind of athlete is your favorite athlete to train? I mean, I know you were football, and now you're in the hockey. I mean, I'm sure you trained, like when you were with Nike, you trained all type of athletes. Like, so what's your favorite type of athlete?
I would say I'll give you one general statement. My favorite athlete to train is the motivated athlete, the person who wants to be better, who's putting in the work, who cares, who's attentive, who's doing all the things that I ask, and you know what I mean, and they trust. You know, now beyond that, when you get into sports specificity, I prefer, and I really like training with or training football and hockey players. They're some of my favorite athletes to work with. I would say a lot of them are very dedicated to the sport by way of wanting to get after it. You know, I'm definitely not talking mess about any other sports, but some of them, they're not feeling it. They're not feeling it, and you know, that goes beyond like their ready state, because there's metrics we can look at to see if somebody's actually is ready to train and ready to work at a certain level. But certain sports, they just don't really want to be in the gym like that, or don't see the benefit, even though there's, you know, tons of science and you know everybody does it. But for me, I would say that basketball and hockey are definitely top for me.
And speaking of that, so what are some challenges training?
I'm sorry, not basketball, football.
We know what you meant, even though you got basketball in the heart. So speaking of that, what are some challenges training celebrities and professional athletes?
Yeah, motivation, dealing with certain people's like teams or some agents, you know, the demands of their lifestyle. You know, certain athletes have certain lifestyle choices of wanting to be, you know, out and seen or party and whatnot, which affects recovery. and or just some people that, you know, they handle adversity by way of like all these trolls nowadays. They handle it in a certain way. They might not necessarily be the best, and so there's a lot that affects athletes, which can affect, you know, working with them. Like I said, like I think that's why for me the best people to work with, whether they're like celebrity or top athlete or anything, are the people that are motivated and people that want to be there, people that want to be better. That's just it from the rip. That's the best, and I think you get the most motivated people are the people that honestly respect what it is you do. And if they come in with a certain amount of respect and they're looking to be coached, that's just like the best situation. And so, you know, for any coach out there that might be listening to this, man, just be the best of your craft, and you'll create an environment and a culture where, you know, your people you're working with will trust you and they want to be there, and you'll get the best out of them.
So say you got two olderish guys that are motivated and respect you as a trainer that may be looking into getting hooping. Like, I'm speaking about me and Kyle. Like I'm just as a hypothetical. As a hypothetical, say Kyle and I were trying to you know, go play overseas or something like that. Like, what would you look at as far as like me and him in our situations that would help you to prepare a program that would be kind of tailor-made to us achieving our goals?
Yeah. So if I had two guys like you and Kyle at this age and where you're at, and you're talking about going overseas and playing overseas, I'll be like, boy, you out your mind. Bro. Stay at home. What are you doing? You got a wife and a child that loves you. What are you doing? Don't do it to yourself. Everything is going to blow up. You're going to be just on the road like a tire blows up.
Exactly.
No, but real talk though, you would have to like really like do like a fuller assessment. I would really invest more time in like the injury report and seeing like kind of like a joint by joint, like where you're strong at, where you're weak at, and then go from there and creating a program. You know, I mean, things are still like strength based, but like I said, we're not trying to make you like the strongest like man in the world. You know what I mean? We're not trying to make you a bodybuilder. We're trying to make it's like functional strength that is like more sports specific and or like basketball specific. And so, you know, it'd still be like a lower body focus, but there still will be upper body work. You know what I mean? Don't think that you're not doing any upper body work, but it'd be focusing on your injury history, looking at where you're at now, doing as many assessments as you have access to see like joint by joint, like where, like I said, like where asymmetries may lie, or you know, if there is like a real like issue of something just not being strong and not being functional, that can lead into potential injuries sooner than later. And so you would go from there and creating that plan, and it's making it the right plan for the individual. And then also you got to take in consideration the league in which you're going to be playing in, right? If you're talking about certain like European leagues, it's like pretty physical, right? And so, you know, it's taking that consideration too, and saying like, all right, this is going to be trying to body you up in the post, you know, or, you know, you're kind of coming off screens, so you got to be strong going through those screens. And so there might be, you know, a little bit more of, you know, a strength focus here and there, but like it still will be natural progression for like cycles and leading up to the departure date. But yeah, I would say for a certain age, it is literally a lot more like functional than like strength based, right? I wouldn't train you guys the same way that a college strength and conditioning coach is training, you know, an 18-year-old, you know, basketball player that's been in the system for at least a year, or, you know, a 19-year-old basketball player that or 20-year-old basketball player has been in the system 2 years, that where we need like a really strong base and strong foundation for all the games they're playing. And we need to get them ready for next year to be a leader and take over. It's a different focus.
You could train us. We could go over to Dubai or something and go out there and bust them up. Just shoot more jump shots. Then we can still do it. We're not going to Spain or nowhere like that. Maybe go to like China, go out there Shanghai Nights or something like that. All right, Ryan. So come to the end of the podcast. Before we let you go, we're gonna hit you with these 5 questions. And it's just for fun, so there's no pressure. You ready?
I'm ready, man.
All right. What are your top 5 foods to eat?
Foods to eat?
Yes.
Ooh, that's a good question. Man, lately I've been into like fruits. I've been eating a lot of apples lately.
Okay.
I was a vegan for almost 3 years. That's a whole nother conversation. Yeah. And then I just switched back to eating animal protein. And so a good steak, good high quality steak, solid. Let me see my go-tos. I mean, I've been like, as far as like fibrous vegetables, I'm a big broccoli fan. And man, I gotta be real, man. I love me some good cookies. You know what I mean? You got a good cookie.
Okay, you are human. That's what's up. What are your top 5 just sneakers in general?
Oh, sneakers, that's easy. That's easy. So for me, Jordans, it goes Jordan 11s.
Yeah.
It goes Jordan 1s, Jordan 3s, Jordan 5s. And then there's a whole bunch of other things after that, but I'll give you just my top there. When it comes to Nike Air Max 1s, and then Blazers, Nike Blazers.
Okay. So, all right. Okay. What are your top 5 workout routines?
Ooh. I like to do strength training. So like, I like to, lift heavy. I don't really lift heavier than 2 times a week. So those are, my 2 like strength days a week. So like strength training, I like hit training. So like a full body hit, or it could be something that's a little bit more like core focus. I like working with the sled. And so as an alternate to like conventional, cardiovascular training or like running, I like do sled work, man. It'll gas me. On the air bike, it's another thing. Like, man, the air bike is serious.
What's that?
It's just like the wind bike, so it has like the fan, like they also call it a fan bike. Yeah.
Are you doing this?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll gas you. And one thing that I actually used to love back in the day, that I'll still put it in there, even though I don't do it as much, but in the off season, I'll have my guys do it. Working on the sand dunes, man. I don't know if you remember back in the day.
Yes.
So back in the day, in LA, everybody used to be at the sand dunes. Everybody used to be there training.
Hated the sand dunes.
Man, it was legit. It was a love hate. You know what I mean?
It was.
But it would, you always felt better from it, and like the energy there at the sand dunes was incredible back in the day, because you never knew who would show up, but you always knew that everybody was there to put that work in. Yep. And so I would say that would be like one of my top all-time workouts.
Okay. And I'll leave you with this. Top 5 NBA players of all time. Your list. You mentioned LeBron a few times. Waiting to see if your 5.
Man, see, I had a feeling you're gonna do this to me.
Yeah.
All right. So Jordan, for me, I grew up, in the Jordan era. So for me, Jordan is that guy. Jordan is that guy. Oh man. So I've been debating lately on, because I think Kareem is one of the greatest of all time. If you look at his win record from his entire career, from probably like, park ball when he was younger, all the way to being, you know, the NBA champion, like it's impeccable. And so I gotta throw him on that list. Okay. For me, I think LeBron has earned a spot in most people's top 5, if not everybody's top 5. Okay. It's hard to like not include somebody as special as Magic on that list, you know, from all that he did, you know, being just a game changer with height, playing the position and everything he did, as far as like winning and everything else. And then, so that last spot is a tough one for me. So because I grew up in the Jordan era, Kobe was not like my go-to like that. Got a lot of respect for Kobe and what he did for the game and what he did for the Lakers organization, but he's not in my top 5. And so that last spot, I've been kind of like going back and forth with it, and my last, I think it might be Shaq, man. Like, to be honest with you.
Cool. No, that's cool.
Because he changed the game. Like, there was nobody, I don't know anyone that in Shaq's prime that could stop Shaq.
Nah.
No one.
No one.
No one.
That's a no. You good? That's a solid 5. LeBron's not in my top 5, so it's good. You good? Yeah, nah. But I said your top 5. Like, I'm not gonna go off of everybody. You know, mine is Magic, Mike, Kevin Durant, Kevin Garnett, and Shaq. I don't care what nobody. And Penny Hardaway off the bench. I don't care about what anybody. That's just my 5.
Yeah, and that's nice. You know, I like Penny. You know what I mean? For me, Steph, he's creeping higher on that list for me. Oh, you know what I mean? Sure. AI, he's like, he's up there, but it's like that top. You know what I mean? It's like it's hard.
It is, and it's subjective. It's all good conversation, you know.
Yeah.
So Ryan, you know, we've got a wealth of knowledge from you. We appreciate your time, but now we're gonna give you the stage and for you to tell the people where they can follow you, like what you got going on, what you got going on next, where they can find your fitness workouts and knowledge and all that other stuff.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, so you can check me out at rypenfitness.com. That's RYPEN fitness.com. I'm on social media, the same moniker, Ripen Fitness, on Instagram and Twitter. I'm doing a bunch of different things with a bunch of different companies right now. One company I'm doing work with is called Open. They're a breathwork and meditation company. And so you can go and honestly, you can get 30 days free if you type in the code Open Ryan. When you go to the app, you put that in, 30 days free. It's an amazing company. I'm doing some other things with a few other companies. One is this company called Kinvent. They're a great, that's KINVNT. And they're doing a lot of great stuff in the space on like the sports tech and sports med side of things, getting even more usable data for like practitioners so that we can honestly see like where athletes are in their progress, whether it be talking about like return to play or just talking about like overall strength, joint by joint, and muscle specificity. It's a great tool that I'm implementing even more within like my athletes and everyday athletes too. Is what I like to call like the general population I work with. So you can still find me in the Nike Training Club app. I'm all over within workouts and whatnot. Also within Open, leading workouts every Thursday at 12 o'clock. So you get that lunchtime hit with your boy. Oh, okay. And so I'll be having some on-demand classes there sometime soon. Also on rypenfitness.com, I got a bunch of different workouts and exercise demonstrations. You can find it on the homepage on the website. Also got some merch on the website. Just go to shop. We got this Ripen Fitness merch and Ripen Performance Lab Hockey Club merch. The facility is in El Segundo. If you just reached out to me, we can set things up as far as getting you going in person. I have more training plans that are coming soon. They'll be available on the website, rapidfitness.com, and also on the app, train.rapidfitness.com. And so, yeah, man, just follow me on IG. I'll be posting a lot of stuff there. Get with your boy.
For sure, bro.
Yeah, man, that's amazing. Thank you again. Make sure everybody subscribes and comments on our YouTube page. We appreciate Ryan, sitting down with us, giving us some good information and shooting our dreams down as far as going back to the leagues.
I'm thinking about you. I'm thinking about your longevity.
No. It's all love, of course. Thank you again. So I'm signing off. Old Man Ross, fly kicks and sweatsuits, spread love and not hate.
It's your man D Hill, the gift card bandits. Get in the gym, shoot some jumpers, at least about 8.
Peace. Y'all be safe.